I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Council of the City of Springdale for August 21st, 2024. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As we begin this meeting, let us bring to mind the start of the new school year in our community and appreciation for all the teachers, support staff, and administrators who help shape our children's lives. We remember through our own service to this community that our words, our decisions, and our actions directly impact so many others as we conduct the work of the city. In this spirit, let us incline our ears towards reason, apply our hearts to understanding, and seek knowledge we can use to find common ground among the residents for the betterment of our community. Thank you. Ms. Browder, can you take roll?
Mr. Gleaves?
Present.
Mr. Jacobs?
Present.
Ms. McFarland?
Present.
Mrs. Selva-Meiskop?
Present.
Mr. Vanover?
Present.
Mrs. Webster?
Aye. Present.
Mr. Anderson?
Present. All right, Council, before you in your package, you have the minutes for the July 17th meeting. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any changes or discussion? All right, all those in favor of approving the minutes as published signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
The minutes are approved with 6 affirmative votes. All right, moving right along. Next, we have a presentation in recognition of the Marjorie Underwood Randolph. Marjorie Underwood Randolph. I'll get it eventually. Mayor Hawkins.
I'm going to let Mr. Wilson start out, and then I'm going to chime in after him.
I want to thank you all for having me here this evening. I'm going to call up Marjorie Underwood Randolph and her husband, Jim Masinko. If you wouldn't mind, come up here real quick. Got a short little presentation for you. So for those of you that aren't unaware, about a year ago, Marjorie reached out to the city and said, hey, these parks, specifically Underwood and Cameron, they're not in the best shape, and I'd like to do something about it. And so, we kind of went back to her and we said, hey, what are you looking to do? Are you looking to get new garbage cans? You're looking to get a new playground set? And she said, well, whatever you do, I want it done right. Well, so then we went back to the drawing board and we looked at our comprehensive plan and our connectivity plan that we worked on over the past couple years. And so we threw a wish list together and we went back to her and she had agreed to these plans. And we're very fortunate to have our 2 parks upgraded in our park system here, all done by her. And I'll show you a little bit of before and after of what the parks look like so that you can kind of gain a perspective. So this is Underwood Playground. It had seen better days since 2023. When she reached out to us, I thought she was, an angel because I was really unaware of if she was serious or not. And this is what it looks like today. So with that, our previous park, we didn't have connections. We didn't have walkways for our residents or people to get to and from what was our playground and our picnic tables, which I'll show you right here. This was actually where we had people come and have community days on Sundays after church and barbecue. It looks a little lackluster, and then you turn around to what it is today, and that's what you got. And then I'll go back over to Cameron Park, which wasn't in the worst of shape, but obviously we wanted to step it up a notch and add some more amenities to it, and we made it into that. And then again, with our picnic shelter area, that was it. You see the trash can falling apart. And then with her help and her generosity, we turned it into this. So we're very fortunate to have her donate and give to our city, and we want to thank her this evening. So with that said, I got a quick little video, and then I'll call up the mayor. our last slide. In honor of her mother.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Before you go anywhere, I have a proclamation for you with regard to the generous gift that you've given, and just want to say again, you've brought to reality things that we have talked about, envisioned, and dreamed about for years. We've talked about wanting to have a shelter house for years, and now we have 2, thanks to you. So, if I may, whereas Marjorie Underwood Randolph has generously donated nearly $600,000 to revitalize Cameron and Underwood Park, demonstrating exceptional commitment to the city of Springdale and its residents. And whereas this generous donation honors the memory of Edna G. Underwood, Marjorie's mother, who served as a dedicated teacher in Springdale from 1943 to 1967, and as a member of City Council from 1960 to 1971. And whereas the revitalization of these parks includes new family picnic shelters, seating areas, grilling pads, playground equipment, accessible walking paths, bike racks, walkway benches, and restrooms aligning with our city's comprehensive and connectivity plans. And whereas these improvements will provide spaces for physical activity, recreation, and connection with nature, and promoting better physical and mental health for residents of all ages. And whereas the enhanced parks will serve as community gathering places, fostering social bonds, encouraging family interactions, and creating a sense of belonging among diverse groups of people. And whereas these revitalized parks are expected to improve neighborhood safety, increase property values, provide environmental benefits, and offer economic advantages through increased foot traffic and tourism. And whereas the city of Springdale extends its deepest gratitude to Marjorie Underwood Randolph for her transformative donation and recognizes the profound impact that it will have on our city, families, and residents for generations to come. And whereas the city of Springdale hereby dedicates the revitalized Cameron and Underwood Park in honor of Edna G. Underwood, celebrating her legacy of service to our community. Now, therefore, I, Lawrence C. Hawkins III, Mayor of the City of Springdale, do hereby proclaim August 21st, 2024 as Marjorie Underwood Randolph Day. Thank you.
All right, that's going to be a tough act to follow. I'm not sure if we have the presentation for the next one, but we do have a proclamation, a resolution. So next we'll move on to a proclamation recognizing John Jones, retired city administrator, and his retirement. I believe there's a proclamation first and then a resolution. So Mayor Hawkins, when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before I do this, Mr. Jones, you have served our city well and improved our organization. We're better for you having been here. You've impacted not just the city and the organization as a whole, but you've touched many individuals. You've changed the culture of the organization, and you've taken an interest in every person that's worked in the organization from folks that are at the entry level of dealing with customer service to your department heads and directors. Mr. Jones has always found a unique way to connect with everyone and bring them closer. You've also taken an interest in trying to make everyone richer. If you've been around Mr. Jones, and everyone in the organization for sure has heard him talk about deferred comp. So he even got me dealing with deferred comp. But it's part of his interest in making sure that he's literally and figuratively enriching individuals' lives. Words can't express the amount of appreciation for what you've done. I'm going to read this proclamation. We have a little bit more for you too going on. But whereas upon retirement of City Administrator John J. Jones in recognition of his 40 years in public service, and whereas John received his master's degree in public administration and bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Ohio University, and whereas John started his 40-year public service career with a federal agency in January 1984, has served the state of Ohio Parole Authority, and spent over 24 years of his career in the role of city administrator with the communities of the city of Cambridge, the city of Trenton, and the city of Springdale. And whereas during John's 6 years with the city of Springdale as the city administrator, he served under the direction of former Mayor Webster and Mayor Hawkins, and was responsible for the day-to-day operations, supervision of all city departments, preparation of the annual operating budget, oversight of the city's financial condition, and enforcement of laws and ordinances within the city, as well as the execution of the city council's policies. And whereas to express appreciation to John J. Jones for his public service and commitment to the city of Springdale over the past 6 years, and wish him well in retirement as he begins a new chapter in his life. And whereas it is my great honor to issue this proclamation today, and now therefore I, Lawrence C. Hawkins III, Mayor of the city of Springdale, do hereby proclaim Wednesday, August 21st, 2024, John J. Jones Day. One more thing. With the assistance of Ms. Browder, you have left an indelible mark on this city, and as such, I know you already have 2 keys to the city from the city of Cambridge and Trenton, but we have also gotten you a city key from the city of Springdale. And so with the help of Ms. Brauder, she's put these all together for you. So I know this probably wasn't a big surprise because you were missing your other keys, but, but we want you to know that we appreciate you. And in closing, the environment that you fostered has been remarkable. The team that you've helped assemble and the culture through there, it's made all the difference in the world. And by us having great leadership at the top and then great department heads, it filters down through the entire organization, and we're able to give great service to our residents, which is our goal. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And as you would say, a John Jonesism that we've all heard, when you're evaluating how someone's done, you knocked it out of the park.
John, don't go too far. Why don't we read our piece of it, and then we'll open it up for comments and feedback. Is that all right? You can hang out down the well here, though. It's an unusual space for you to be at, so it might be unique. With that, I'd like to move on to item 8, which is Resolution R11-2024, which is a resolution commending City Administrator John J. Jones for his dedicated service to the citizens of the City of Springdale. Whereas John J. Jones has served as the city administrator for the City of Springdale for 6 years, and upon retirement has completed 40 years in public service. And whereas during his tenure as city administrator, John J. Jones diligently served under 2 mayors and collaborated with a total of 12 city council members and has attended over 136 council meetings and countless committee meetings. And whereas John J. Jones has shown outstanding leadership skills in managing the city over the past 6 years by transforming its interdepartmental culture and strategically developing and promoting the city's department directors and administration leadership team for the betterment of the city operations and improved service delivery to the residents and business of our great city. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected to thereto concurring. Section 1, that John J. Jones is hereby given the commendation of the Council of the City of Springdale for his outstanding and dedicated service to the city. 2, that the Clerk of Council is directed to certify a copy of this resolution to John J. Jones. And 3, this resolution shall take effect and be in full force from the earliest period allowed by law. Council, you've heard the reading of resolution
Now I move to
R11.
adopt.
Second.
Do we have a second?
Yeah,
You
second.
ignore me all the other times, so I have to do it today.
Do we have a second?
Yes, second it.
All right, I have the motion by Councilmember Webster and seconded by Councilmember Sullivan Wisecup. Is there any discussion or comments that anyone would like to share? Ms. Sullivan Wisecup.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Jones, you are one of my very favorite people in the world, and you know that because I text it to you on your regular basis. I say to you out of nowhere, true? I say you're one of my favorite people. Since the moment you came in, you've made everyone feel comfortable up here like you've always been here. And we've accepted you like that's the way that it's always been also. Thank you for making that transition easy in the beginning. And this transition is going to be easy because you made it so that way too, but it's going to be hard because we're going to miss you a lot. Good thing is, I know where you live. And I look forward to coming over and checking the progress in your yard. Because I don't know if a lot of people know this, he likes to garden, and he has a great yard for it. So I do look forward to seeing your yard in your retirement and seeing it grow like you grew our city. Thank you.
Ms. Webster.
John, I remember the day you were hired very well. Doyle came home after interviewing you for this job. He told me he had found Derek's replacement. I said, how can that be? This is the first day you've been interviewing people. He said, I know it, but I have found him, and his name is John Jones. And I guess he was right. You have been a wonderful city administrator. Your humor, the way you treat people, your management skills have just been wonderful. I wish you and Kim nothing but the best in your retirement. Safe travels, and thank you for what you've done for our city.
Mr. Jacobs.
Thank you. Mr. Jones, in the short time I've been up here, your support, as mentioned by others, making me feel comfortable. And when I think of you, I think of the words professionalism, approachability, honesty, and then you have to throw in humor as well, because you match them all up so well. And it's really made it a wonderful experience. We are going to miss you very much. My question is, can we call you Three Keys Jones now? Because I like that. I think that would fit.
All right, I will add this comment as well. Thank you, Mr. Jones, for the work that you've done. It's been a pleasure working with you. I know for me, one of the marks of leadership, especially in a role like you're in, is the work you do day to day is important, but also the legacy you leave behind. Sometimes it's the work you do, or a key item, or a key law, or the fact that we didn't get sued a certain number of times. You kept us on the straight and narrow. One of the key marks of a good leader is the people you leave behind too, how you've touched them and improved their leadership skills, and if you left the organization better than when you came in. I look down the aisle and I see 2 new faces and new seats here. Both were internal candidates. I see Brian Ewell moved over into your chair, and then we have Ms. Morgan joining us as assistant administrator. I think that's a testament to your leadership ability here and the work that you've done. It isn't just what happened out there, but you see it here, that you've developed people and passed on those skills. So thank you for that. Mr. Vanover.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I had the distinct and unique honor to sit in on the interview that Mrs. Webster mentioned. And Mayor Webster and I both commented afterwards that how impressive the interview went, and we were impressed with you. You're the third city administrator I've worked with, and I keep wearing them out. I don't know why. But beyond that, just the culture change, the atmosphere, it was completely different pre and post. But the thing that I relish the most out of this is I can call you friend. And that means a lot.
Mr. Gleaves.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm the baby of the bunch, and man, I'm gonna miss you. The first day I met you, I walked in your office, and you were just so welcoming. You treated me so kind, and you treat everybody the same way, and that's a rare art these days. So thank you so much for everything you've done. Thank you for being so really good to me, and I'm gonna miss your jokes. I really will. Have a good time in retirement.
Ms. McFarland.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think I'm the baby of the group, but thank you for everything you did to support all three of us new coming in. I truly appreciate everything you did for us, everything you've done for me over the last few months. I'm just sorry we won't get to work with you more, but don't be afraid to stop by and visit. So thank you.
I'm not seeing any more lights. Ms. Brown, if you poll council on resolution R11, 2024.
Mrs. Webster? Aye. Mrs. Seldom-Weiskopf?
Aye.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye. Resolution R11, 2024 passes with 7 affirmative votes. Again, thank you, Mr. Jones, for your time here, and best of luck in retirement. You know where to find us. If you'd like to say anything, please. I guess I should have said that before we voted. We might need to change our votes.
Brian's got it turned on, I see. Wow, this has been very humbling. Thank you, Mr. President and elected officials, Mayor Hawkins, Mr. Yule, our new city administrator. Boy, I'm gonna take a little time maybe to get used to that one. Miss Morgan, seeing you in a completely different light now, so congratulations. Mr. Braun and Mr. Riggs, thank you. Ms. Browder and Deb, thank you. A little bit of this evening, folks, it almost felt like you were talking about somebody else. So let me say a couple things, if that's okay. I have had the privilege to work for 40+ years in 3 different cities, and I'll tell you, a lot of changes, a lot of different things go on, a lot of people you meet and so forth, none better than right here. So I'd like to say something about Lawrence Hawkins III. First of all, Mayor, you're doing a great job. And the measuring stick comes pretty quickly in a role like yours. And the support that you've given to this administration has been incredible. And the support is so important. And ladies and gentlemen of council, it comes from you as well. We feel it, we recognize it, we appreciate it. So thank you very kindly for that. Again, congratulations to the 2 folks that are joining the dais now. I think they'll serve you quite well. Mr. President, I appreciated your comments. I too feel that way, that it's important that we have a succession plan in place. Mayor Hawkins talks about it quite often with us as well. Ladies and gentlemen, you're in good hands. Mayor Webster, I appreciate you hiring me in 2018 and council confirming it. Thank you very kindly. I told the mayor about 6 years ago I wasn't so sure about the culture that I walked into. That's not a bad reflection on others. It's just I do things a little bit different. That's okay. And he said, well, what do you want to do about the culture? And I said, well, it takes quite a while to change the culture in an organization. Statistically, they say 5, 7, 10 years. And I'm kid you not, he goes, you better get started. So that's where we started with that. So let me tell you what 40.8 years equates to. So take this into consideration for a second. I have had the honor every Sunday for 40.8 years to iron clothes. Now, not that I want to be overly specific because Nicole Browder said, yeah, leave that alone. I have ironed 14,845 outfits. And I'm not exaggerating. Let me tell you what else 40 years, 8 months, and 14 days equates to. If you just worked 10 hours a day, that's 148,450 hours. But let's not stop there. That's 8,907 minutes, or 534,420 seconds. Just thought I'd share those with you. So I am going to start a new chapter, but boy, this has been a great job. Made some friends, embraced some challenges. We did some concentrated efforts to make sure we got the right people in the right positions. That we thought that was so important along the way. My favorite part of the job is working together as a team. You accomplish so much as a team when you're working on things. And in my opinion, some of the things that's been accomplished, I'm taking John out of that equation. Some of the stuff has been impressive. And one of my favorite things is to watch staff grow and to see people get promoted. So I thank you, all the incredible people that's helped me along the way in the journey. None more than my wife, Kim. My daughter, Jen, is here. I appreciate that. My son, Johnny, made it Friday. He talked several times with me, as did my daughter, about how much they appreciated how kind folks have been to them. So I thank you for that. So I also thank my wife and my kids for, we've had a lot of long nights over the years, and you get the text and the emails and so forth, but it's all part of it. We're going to continue uninterrupted. Brian and Stephanie will keep this going just fine. We have that succession plan's turned out great. I want to thank Anthony Pagan and Nicole Browder for putting up with me in the mornings. Folks, I come in, and my wife will tell you, I'm full of energy early in the mornings. And I come in here without coffee, and I'm ready to go. And they put up with me what I think they would probably argue would be wisecracks. I see it as a good sense of humor. But nonetheless, I appreciate you tolerating me. Big shout out, folks, to our department directors. We're very blessed. You got some great directors here. The city would not be able to function with those folks in place. I want to thank our co-workers. Many family and friends are here. I thank you for that. Very kind of you to be here. I've become friends with Joe Braun. I've become friends with Sean Riggs all through work, and it's a wonderful thing. So I also want to thank the folks that serve on our committees and commissions. Very important that you have those committed individuals in our community, and you got to love that guy right there. So as I conclude my 40-year career, I stand proud on the many things that I believe that we've achieved along the way in various different locations, but none more proud than what we've achieved in the city of Springdale, and will continue to have go forward and go into our line of the way we want things to go, because I believe you have the right pieces of the puzzle in place now. In my role as a leader, I've always felt it's been about making others better and to help prepare them for the next opportunity. I hope in some small way that my presence here in Springdale has done that. And I hope in my departure, that's the part that at least I will feel, and I hope that that is felt by some others. You know, it's important you surround yourself with people much smarter than you. That's a blessing when you do it. It's not a threat. People shouldn't be threatened by that. So let that sink in for a moment. Surround yourself with people smarter than you. So I would argue, I'd rather you not offer your own opinions on this personally, but I would argue I was not great at a single thing. But I did find staff that were the very best at a lot of stuff. And you get them on your team, and it all comes together. So when people inquire as to what you plan to do in retirement, well, I want to do some traveling. That's going to happen. I may do some consulting, and there's going to be some other things that we'll get into. But the privilege and honor it has been for me to work here is hard to put into words. It really is. It's the support and the folks that embrace you here. It's like none other I've ever witnessed. So I want to close with a couple comments. One is, I do feel very blessed. I think the Lord's taking good care of me. Frankly speaking, I was blessed that I had wonderful parents. I came from a family of 8 children. I was the best one. No, I was. But of those 8, I tell you, my parents had no running water, no indoor plumbing, no heating, no cooling system. We come up on a 139-acre farm that my dad had inherited from his mother, and I don't know how they did it. We had 2 fireplaces, and we had a coal stove, which is helpful, and 1 window fan. So I always appreciated that in the upstairs. But you know, they wanted a better life for their children. And all 8 of the kids have done okay. And so I thank my parents for that. They taught us a great work ethic, and I've always been proud of that. So again, I want to thank Kim and Jenna for being here. I see several friends. I see some new friends, some current workers, former employees, daughter, wife, and some folks. I appreciate that. So here's my final comments. You know, they say money's not everything, but it does help your children stay in touch with you. So I now that I'm segueing into retirement, I now have more time to spend with my drive-in instructor, otherwise known as my wife, Kim. Yeah. And finally, Jenna, I'm going to be nice to you because I'm positive she's going to be picking out my nursing home someday. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. All right, now we'll move on to the rest of the business of the city. Move with committee and official reports. We'll start with Mr. Coleman, Civil Service Commission.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask your indulgence for a second, Council, because I have something that I needed to say in regards to Mr. Jones.
Oh, please, take whatever time you need for that.
It'll just take a few seconds here. I have often come to administrative office, and I would say to Teresa, who you know as the administrative assistant out front, and I would say, is Mr. Jones busy? And she would say, yes, he's calculating. I was under the impression that he was calculating the budget. Now I know what he was calculating. You know, to come up with all of those numbers. I said, okay, I'll have to let Teresa know. Yep, now I know. But thank you so much. It's been my pleasure, so most certainly. Moving on with the actual civil service report, which is just a few items here. I want to highlight that the fire lieutenant promotion process continues to move forward with letters of interest. We're supposed to be accepted until August the 16th. And hopefully we have a good crop of interested candidates there. Also, I see Chief Butler here, and I wanted to make sure that the approved number of police patrol officers is, at the time of this report, was 1 officer away from full staffing. And hopefully now we have full staffing. Okay, so we'll know that within 2 weeks that for the first time in quite some time that the police department will have full staffing within the patrol officers. And finally, the efforts to hire for the police clerk position are still continuing. So if anyone knows of anybody that's seeking that job opportunity for a police clerk, please continue to send them our direction, as we still have a vacancy there. And I certainly want to thank the efforts of everyone who's been involved for all of these different positions, because it's been a monumental task. Special thanks to new City Administrator Brian Ewell and Assistant City Administrator Stephanie Morgan. I told them both I couldn't wait until I could see their names up on the dais, and again, it's happened. So again, thank you both. And that concludes my report, with the exception that the next civil service meeting is scheduled for September the 5th at 2 p.m. Thank you.
Don't see any questions. Thank you, Mr. Coleman. All right, next we have Rules and Law, Mr. Jacobs.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report.
Finance Committee, Mr. Vanover.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our year-to-date receipts in the general fund are $23,797,051.72. The year-to-date expenditures are $24,671,178.66, which leaves us an ending balance in the general fund of $8,381,841.83.
Thank you. Don't see any questions. Next, we'll move on to Planning Commission, Ms. Sullivan Westcott.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report.
Board of Zoning Appeals, Mr. Gleaves.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report.
Board of Health, Ms. McFarland.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report.
Capital Improvements, Ms. Sullivan Westcott.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report.
OKI, that's me. OKI is still on summer schedule, so no report. Next, we have the Mayor's report. Mayor Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. First off, just a reminder, town hall meeting at the Rec Center on September 11th, 2024. It'll be an opportunity to come speak with elected officials that want to participate. I know Mr. Anderson and myself will be there. Anyone else who wants to come can be there. But an opportunity to share ideas and give feedback in an informal setting. So again, that's going to be Wednesday, September 11th at 7 p.m. at the Rec Center. The Springdale Police Department Citizens Patrol Academy is starting a new class September the 9th, and it runs through November 4th of 2024. They're going to meet on Monday nights from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. A great opportunity to learn about our police department, the criminal justice system, and how things work in general. I taught at a Citizens Patrol or Citizens Academy in Middletown years ago. Just a great opportunity for folks to learn. So there's still spots available if people are interested. August 29th, there'll be a concert in the park at 7:30 at the amphitheater. This is to replace the concert that got rained out earlier in the month. Please come out and enjoy that event. And want to note that our pool received the Pool of the Month from Swim Safe for July, based on how the pool was run and management, and it's a great tribute to those individuals. And last but not least, we will have, dare I say,
You're okay.
a goldfish swim on August 31st, 2024 at 1 p.m. Now, before people start picketing and calling and emailing, these are toy goldfish. So don't come down and call up our municipal building and yell at people. We're having a toy goldfish swim on August 31st, 2024. And it'll be little individuals like this running around that kids can go and capture for prizes. So a toy goldfish swim will take place. We continue to swim with the fish. If anybody wants to see these, I'll pass those down. But want to have people come out for that again, August 31st, 2024 at 1 p.m. And with that, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Hawkins. All right, next we have the administrator's report, and I'm checking my notes here. It says Mr. Yule.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, that was not a typo. That was correct. Just a few things for by way of a report this week. I just wanted to recognize our Chief Fire Inspector, Tom Lindsay, retired on August the 16th. And it was a good turnout for his retirement celebration, and we do appreciate his 25 years of service here in the city of Springdale. Been a fine member of our community and our workforce. Also want to publicly recognize Mr. Jones for his service here in the city of Springdale, and I appreciate all the opportunities that you've afforded to me over the years. I wouldn't be in this position right now if it weren't for the opportunities you provided me over the last 4.5, so I'm forever grateful for that. Our building official, Chief Building Official Carl Lamping, will be retiring on August the 30th. We have a conditional job offer extended to an individual to replace him, so we're hoping by the end of September we can bring that person on board. And that's the end of my report. Ms. Morgan?
All right, thank you. Next we have the Law Director's report. Mr. Braun.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to report that yesterday I had the opportunity to attend training with 3 members of our police department in Sharonville. The Ohio Attorney General's office put on a seminar on improving and drafting better record retention policies. And I talked to them there, and we have some really good ideas. What otherwise would be a routine Records Commission meeting, hopefully when we have that on September 4th, we'll have some new ideas to present on ways that we can be more efficient and change our policy to benefit the city a little bit. So other than that, I have no other report.
All right, thank you. Next we have the engineer's report. Mr. Riggs.
Thank you. Yeah, just a few things. Northland Boulevard project, construction continues on that. Then the Crescentville Road resurfacing project is pretty much complete. It's substantially complete. But there is a MRF agreement on the agenda tonight that's going to help offset some of the local cost. The Tri-County Parkway Sidewalk Extensions project, we had a pre-construction meeting with ALETA on August 7th. They're tentatively scheduled to begin on the sidewalk installation on October 14th. But they're looking to do some of the tree plantings and some of the tree removal ahead of that. They believe it's only going to take 5 weeks to complete once they get started, and the contract completion date is December 20th. And that's all I had.
All right, thank you. Next we have the Rental Program Committee. Mr. Vandover.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee members have been made aware and provided the results of that study, and we have a meeting scheduled for the 8/28 at 2 o'clock to go through that. So that's where we are right now.
Thank you. Next we have the Urban Farming Special Committee. We'll do Mr. Jacobs for that report tonight.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just an update in terms of the survey the city put out. It was sent out in the newsletter, QR code on the back. We appreciate all the residents who have participated in the survey, but we could use more. And we're going to close that survey on August 30th. So if you have not completed the survey, please do. We need your feedback. Beyond that, before the next Urban Farming Special Committee meeting, which will take place on September 3rd, we're hoping to have some legislation to go through then. And then our goal ultimately is to bring that before council. And unless there are any questions, that concludes my report.
Ms. Sullivan-Wisecup.
Thank you. I just had one question. If for any reason someone doesn't have the QR code still, is there anywhere else that they could find that survey if they wanted to complete it?
I believe the newsletter is digitally on the city website, and so they could go that route.
Okay.
I've seen it on social media on some of the community pages as well, but we could push for more of that. We could try to spread around some more.
Thank you.
Mayor Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just along those lines of Ms. Megan Sullivan-Wisecup, they also could come to the city. We'll have copies here if they need to utilize it there if they can't get online and do it.
Good. All right, that's it for committee and official reports. Next, we'll move on to communications. Ms. Browder, are there any communications for council this evening?
Thank you, Mr. President. No communications this evening.
All right. Next, we'll move on to communications from the audience. This is an opportunity for anyone in the audience that would like to address council for any reason. All you simply have to do is come up to the dais, state your name and address, and you can have up to 5 minutes to address council for any reason. The floor is now open for communications from the audience.
Good afternoon or evening. As you know, my name is Dora Webster. I had three things I'd like to quickly discuss. First off, I'd be remiss if I didn't congratulate these two for their being promoted to these positions. They both very well qualified, and I feel very comfortable that the city's going to continue to run. I felt very comfortable when I left the mayor's office that it was going to continue to run under Mayor Hawkins. And I'd just like to echo Mr. Jones's comments about the mayor's office. And I think he's doing a fine job, and I'm sure these two are going to fit right in. And the city's not going to miss a beat with these three new people in these positions. So keep up the good work. I'd like to talk a little bit about John. As my wife said, I knew as soon as we interviewed him, like he was maybe second or third one that day. And I knew as soon as we started the interview that that's the guy we wanted. Excuse me. I'm sort of an old school manager, and was a manager for about 40 years with 3 different banks before I became the mayor of the city. So I probably hired hundreds of people over the years. And I have to say that my hiring of John Jones is the finest one that I made over the years, and I'm very, very proud that I did that. But he did the work. All I did was say, hey, you're the one we want. But like I said, I'm from old school. And old school says, if you're a manager, supervisor, you don't get too close to the people that you're managing or supervising, because you might have to someday discipline those people. And God forbid, you might have to terminate them. So you don't want to get too close to them. And so one of the things I noticed with John, I just thought he was a little too close to the people. And I was concerned about that. And so I called him in one day and I said, John, I don't want to micromanage what you're doing here, but I'm concerned about this. And he proceeded to tell me, give me some examples of him going out for dinner with I think, a police chief in one of these jurisdictions, knowing full well the next day he was going to call him in and fire him. And he did it. No regrets, no sleepless nights, no bawling over the decision. It was the thing he had to do, and he did it. And so it sort of put my fears at rest that he would do what's necessary to be done, even though maybe he would been out drinking or something with the person the night before. So anyway, about the culture thing, that's exactly what happened. And I tell you, I just sort of sat back and marveled at the way he was able to change the culture in that work environment, especially in the administrative wing. And I think that permeates itself all the way up and down the organization. And I think that anybody would tell you that this is a darn good place to work. Very easy, people are friendly, nice, but you still have, oh, thank you very much, but you still have to do your job. And so anyway, John, I can't say it enough. Thank you, thank you, thank you for everything you've done for this city. Now, finally.
You're fine. You're okay.
I want to talk a couple minutes about Underwood Park. I guess I'm the only one around here, since I'll be 85 years old in a couple weeks, that was served with her mother. And I was on council or elected official, but I was an appointed Park and Recreation Director back in 1970, 71. And so I came to all the council meetings, and Mrs. Underwood was naturally there. And I'll never forget her. I mean, she was, even though she was small, very tiny woman. She was very impressive, and she didn't say a whole lot. But when she opened her mouth and she said something, you damn well better listen to what she had to say, because it was very worthwhile. And so I just can't say thank you enough for the generosity of these people. I mean, that is, her mother, I'm sure, is looking down on this meeting this evening, and with a lot of pride in what her daughter has done for this city. And so I'm out of time. Thank you very much.
You're fine, Mayor Webster.
No, I'm good, thanks.
All right. All right, the floor is still open if anyone else would like to address council, especially if they want to say nice things about administration. We'll take all comments, though.
My name is Tommy Cox, 12069 Cantrell Drive. Just got a complaint. There's it's like a party house at 731 York Haven. Every Saturday, the whole entire summer, I've sent them a letter, a nice letter, asking them to turn this music down. They have, I don't know how many people. There's a lot, there's quite a bit of party goers. And this thing goes on 1, 2 in the morning. And I've called the police. Police come, music goes down. As soon as they leave, right back up. Call them again, same exact thing. So I'm just tossing it you guys' way, see what we can do about it, because it's really bad. I mean, it's been going on quite a while. That's all I got.
Hang on a second. We see if we can give you some information tonight. Mayor Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Cox, we will definitely go through and address that situation. Please make sure you put your information and your phone number down there so we can follow up with you.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Mr. Gleaves.
Mr. Cox, what was that address again, please?
731 York Haven. York Haven.
And just so you're aware, we do have a process. I mean, obviously administration's going to look into it, but we have ordinances on the books to help in situations like that where there's repeated offenses or repeated problems. It's part of the nuisance property ordinance that we have. I'm not saying that this is risen to that level. We'll certainly look into it, but just know that we do have ways to deal with that if it's a continuing problem. There's no reason that anyone in the neighborhood shouldn't be able to share the community the way that we need to, so we can look into it. So thank you for bringing that up.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. All right, the floor is still open if anyone else would like to address council for any reason.
Good evening. I'm Julie Webster Tudor, and I'm here on behalf of Springdale Offering Support. Just wanted to give the community and council a little bit of update. We've been pretty busy this summer with aiding a couple residents in the community. I received a call about end of June from Brandis Jackson, the director of nursing, who had gotten a tip from a resident that another resident had no functioning toilet, no functioning bathroom, kitchen. The pipes were a mess, everything. Was living in just deplorable conditions. So she came to SOS to see if we would be able to help, which of course the board, we all agreed wholeheartedly. So we hired, they hired a company, a plumbing company to come in. First, they hired a biohazard cleaning company to come in because the conditions were just deplorable that they were living in. So, and then the plumber came in and redid some work in the pipes and put in a new sink, bathroom, everything. So they are good to go, and I understand that she's reached out to people working cooperatively who has also provided them with a new water heater. So we got that resident taken care of, and then about late last month, she contacted me about another lady who lived in Baldwin Grove who had a diabetic emergency and was in the hospital and so forth. But anyway, they discovered that her house was just very hoarded and unclean and unsanitary. So we also hired the bio-cleaning company to go in and clean that out for her. So just wanted to let people know that Springdale Offering Support isn't just at Christmas time. We are here to help, and we're happy to do so. So if you have any needs or want to know how you can help us out, you can call 513-505-5707. Thank you very much.
All right, the floor is still open. If anyone else would like to address council for any reason.
Good evening. My name is Cole Spradlin. I live on 870 York Haven Road. Being completely honest, I have no idea when it's going to be time again to re-sign the contract with SwimSafe. However, I do want to say thank you for making that hard decision and signing them on. I'm about to complete my 4th year at the pool. Sadly, we only have 5 days left. I truly have no idea how I'm going to keep myself busy. I do hope that when that time comes around again, we sign with SwimSafe again. I worked at the pool when it was under the city, loved it under the city. However, now that we are under SwimSafe, I have never seen it run so smoothly. We have our new head manager, Scott. We have a regional manager, Seth. He can come in and help fix problems that me or Scott cannot fix. And I enjoy that we have that extra safety net just in case something goes wrong. For example, one of the chlorine injectors in the baby pool the other day corroded, and it sheared off. Seth was able to get a part that we already have and kind of engineer it to fix the chlorine pump into the baby pool. I also enjoy the fact that now that our pool is weekends only, I have the ability to go sub in at other pools so I still get hours, keep myself busy, because my other job, I work concerts. There's not concerts every night, so we also have only had to call in staff from other pools twice this season, and I'm glad that we also have that other safety net, because I remember last season, Miss Morgan, you might remember, we were very understaffed last season, and that hit us pretty hard. So now if we're in a place where we need staffing, we can pull in from other pools. But also, since SwimSafe was able to hire so many people, we were fully staffed with a couple extra, and I really did enjoy that. I also want to welcome you to your new places, by the way. So that's all I have. I just wanted to say that we should sign with SwimSafe again.
I think we have a couple comments for you. Mr. Gleaves?
Cole, thank you so much for that information. Very, very useful. One question to you. Will you be back next year?
Right now, I am planning on it, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Hawkins?
Thank you, Mr. President. Cole, appreciate the work you've done as part of the leadership down at the pool this summer. And I'll segue into the very issue that Cole's brought up, and I was going to bring up at the end of the meeting in terms of legislation requested for the next meeting. The administration is going to request council to ask for legislation regarding pool management for next year. It's something that we need to address in September, so we're asking for at least a first reading for the first meeting in September. Thank you.
Thank you, and we can consider that request at this point. And Cole, I will tell you, you're not the first person to bring that information up about SwimSafe. I've had at least 2 other residents contact me, go out of their way, not just side, but reach out to share their experience with SwimSafe and the pool. And these were both people that were very vocal with concern about the transition. They acknowledged the change was hard, but they wanted to make sure they reached back out and shared with administration and council that it was well done, that it was well managed in transition. That's not to say that the work that was being done before wasn't a problem. They were very appreciative of Sharon and the work that was, but they were impressed with SwimSafe, and they universally have asked that we consider continuing with them just because they thought that experience was good. Obviously, the business side of it is still the business side of it, but from the customer side, the resident side, it's been overwhelmingly positive over the summer, so take that. Ms. Sullivan-Weiscup.
Thank you, Mr. President. Cole, on a personal note, I just want to say that I'm very proud of you. You came in as the head guard and are now the assistant manager, and that's very awesome in your first year in a leadership role to move up to that, so I'm very, very proud of you. You did a really good job. And thank you for coming and giving us updates throughout the summer and letting us know how things are going. We appreciate it. Thanks so much.
All right, the floor is still open if anyone else would like to address council for any reason. Second call. Third and final call. All right, at this time I'm closing communications in the audience, and we'll move on to ordinances and resolutions. First up, we have ordinance number 32-2024. It is a second reading. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
Ordinance number 32, 2024, an ordinance amending Chapter 98.01 of the Springdale Code of Ordinances governing the entertainment admission tax in the city of Springdale. Whereas the city of Springdale, the city, has previously adopted Chapter 98 of the Springdale Code of Ordinances related to the city's entertainment admissions tax. And whereas the city seeks to revise the application of the city's entertainment admission tax defined in Section 98.01 to include additional types of events and activities. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Springdale, members elected thereto concurring. Section 1, Chapter 98.01E of the Springdale Code of Ordinances shall be amended as follows. E, entertainment, any performance by an individual, group, or otherwise, including but not limited to stage shows, musical entertainment, circuses, carnivals, displays, exhibits, exhibitions, trade shows, expos, conventions, demonstrations, and sporting events where an admission fee is charged other than school-sponsored sporting events. Section 2, that this council hereby finds and determines that all formal actions relative to the passage of this ordinance were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council, and of its committees, if any, which resulted in formal action, were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with applicable legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 3, that this ordinance shall be effective from and after the earliest period allowed by law.
Council, you've heard the reading of Ordinance 32, 2024. This is a second reading and can be acted on tonight. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Brown, if you poll council.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Mrs. Sullivan Wisecup?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Mrs. Webster? McFarland?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye. Ordinance 32, 2024 passes with 7 affirmative votes. All right, next we'll move on to Ordinance 40, 2024. This does have the emergency clause attached. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
Ordinance number 40, 2024, an ordinance authorizing an agreement between the City of Springdale and the Board of Hamilton County Commissioners for Municipal Road Funds, MRF, relative to the improvement of West Crescentville Road and declaring an emergency. Whereas Section 153.61 of the Ohio Revised Code provides for agreements between any county and any municipal corporation for joint construction of public improvement. And whereas Section 4504.04 of the Ohio Revised Code provides for the application by the municipal corporation and the allocation and encumbering by the Board of County Commissioners of funds available under Section 4504.05 of the Ohio Revised Code. And whereas West Crescentville Road is part of the comprehensive map of the roadways of the county in accordance with Section 4504.03 of the Ohio Revised Code and is in need of improvement. And whereas the City of Springdale, the city, pursuant to Section 4504.04 Revised Code of Ohio, has made application in writing to the Board of County Commissioners for funds available under Section 4504.05 Revised Code of Ohio. These funds are to cover a portion of the cost of improving West Crescentville Road. And whereas the city has filed a copy of the preliminary plans and estimate of cost of such improvement with the city engineer, and whereas the county engineer has approved such preliminary plans and estimates of cost and found the proposed improvement is conducive to the orderly and efficient flow of traffic within and through the county, and so advised the Board of County Commissioners. And whereas the Board of County Commissioners has allocated from funds available for such purpose as provided in Section 4504.05B1 of the Ohio Revised Code for a portion of the cost of such improvement. And whereas the Board of County Commissioners shall certify to the county auditor the amount of any funds allocated to the City of Springdale. Final and detailed plans or statements of work to be done shall be submitted to the county engineer for approval. Upon approval by the engineer, the Board of County Commissioners shall have encumbered the monies necessary to fulfill awarded contractual or other obligations for approved project costs. And whereas upon notification by the city that the work on an improved project has commenced, the county auditor shall draw a warrant for such encumbered amount on the county treasurer payable to the finance officer tax commissioner of the city. And whereas the city shall use all monies received by it under Section 450.04 of the Ohio Revised Code for the purpose for which they are encumbered and return for deposit in the fund established by Section 4504.05B1 of the Ohio Revised Code, any monies not so used. And whereas a joint agreement with the Board of County Commissioners for such improvement shall be authorized and approved. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring. Section 1, that it is hereby declared necessary and in the best interest of the City of Springdale to execute an agreement with the Board of Hamilton County Commissioners in connection with the proposed improvement of West Crescentville Road. The agreement, a copy of the agreement is attached as Exhibit A and incorporated herein by reference. Section 2, the mayor and city administrator are hereby authorized and directed to execute and enter into the agreement. Section 3, that this council hereby finds and determines that all formal actions relative to the passage of this ordinance were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council and of its committees, if any, which resulted in formal action, were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with applicable legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 4, that this ordinance shall be an emergency measure necessary for the preservation of the public peace, health, safety, and general welfare, and shall, subject to the terms of Article 2D, 3D of the Charter, be effective immediately. The reason for said declaration of emergency is the need to execute the agreement to apply for funding available for the proposed project as soon as possible.
Council, you've heard the reading of ordinance number 40, 2024. It does have the emergency clause. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Browder, if you poll council.
Ms. Salvo-Meiska?
Aye.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland?
Aye.
Mrs. Webster? Mr. Anderson?
Aye. Ordinance number 40, 2024 passes with 7 affirmative votes. All right, next we'll move on to ordinance number 41, 2024. This also has the emergency clause. Mr. Jacobs.
Ordinance number 41, 2024, an ordinance reducing and recertifying special assessments levied for the purpose of constructing certain improvements and declaring an emergency. Whereas pursuant to a petition filed by the owners of the benefited properties dated July 27, 2026, petition, City Council of the City of Springdale City Council passed resolution number 11, 2006 on August 2, 2006, declaring the necessity of acquiring and constructing certain improvements related to the Victoria development, and adopted the assessments with respect to those improvements by passage of ordinance number 41, 2006 on August 2, 2006. And whereas, in accordance with the petition, the improvements identified in resolution number 11, 2006 and ordinance 41, 2006, collectively the improvements have been acquired and constructed on behalf of the City of Springdale, the city, in cooperation with the Port of Greater Cincinnati Development Authority, Port Authority. And whereas, pursuant to Chapter 727 of the Ohio Revised Code, the city authorized the assessments be levied and collected for the improvements. And whereas, City Council's passage of ordinance number 42, 2006 on August 2, 2006 levied special assessments against benefited properties and certified said assessments to the Hamilton County Auditor for collection. And whereas the tax increment and special assessing financing cooperative agreement entered into by and among the city, the property owners, and the Port Authority, the cooperative agreement, dated October 1, 2006, requires the assessments be reduced in accordance with the cooperative agreement, which includes reductions for the amount of service payment in lieu of taxes collected pursuant to Section 5709.42 of the Ohio Revised Code and other available funds. And whereas the city has received the report of the administrator as defined in the cooperative agreement, detailing the amount of service payments in lieu of taxes and other funds to be available during the years 2024 and 2025 for the purpose of making debt service payments and indicating the amount by which the special assessments to be collected should be reduced for the 2025 collection year. And whereas the assessments previously leveled and certified to the county auditor for the 2025 collection year should be reduced and recertified in accordance with the administrator's report. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring. Section 1, the assessments of the cost and expense of the improvement plus administrative expenses provided for as part of resolution number 11, 2006 and ordinance 41, 2006 which were previously certified for the 2025 collection year by the City Council to the Hamilton County Auditor's Office for certain parcel numbers and in the amounts as set forth in the attached Exhibit A, which is incorporated here by reference, shall be reduced and recertified to the Hamilton County Auditor and shall be levied and collected for collection year 2025 in the amounts set forth in the attached Exhibit B, which is incorporated herein by reference. The special assessment activity from 2007 to 2025 is included for informational purposes only and is detailed in the attached Exhibit C, which is incorporated herein by reference. Section 2, the Clerk of Council is hereby directed to deliver a certified copy of this ordinance to the County Auditor within 15 days after its adoption on or before September 9th, 2024. Section 3, that it is found and determined that all formal actions of this council concerning and relating to the adoption of this ordinance were adopted in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council and of any of its committees which resulted in such formal action were in meetings open to the public in compliance with all legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 4, this ordinance shall take effect on the earliest date allowed by law. Section 5, that this ordinance shall be an emergency measure necessary for the preservation of the public peace, health, safety, and general welfare, and shall, subject to the terms of Article 2D, 3D of the Charter, be effective immediately. The reason for said declaration of emergency is the need to reduce the assessments at the earliest possible date consistent with the schedule agreed to by the city.
Council, you've heard the reading of ordinance number 41, 2024. It does have the emergency clause. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Brown, if you poll council.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Mrs. Sullivan-Wisecup?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland?
Aye.
Mrs. Webster?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye. Ordinance number 41, 2024 passes with 7 affirmative votes. All right, next we have ordinance number 42, 2024. It also has the emergency clause. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
Ordinance number 42, 2024, an ordinance enacting and adopting the 2024 S27 supplement to the Code of Ordinances of the City of Springdale, Ohio, and declaring an emergency. Whereas the City of Springdale contracts annually with American Legal Publishing Corporation to prepare an update of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Springdale, Ohio, the City Code, to reflect changes and to ensure that the City Code is in compliance with recent revisions to local, state, and federal laws. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring, Section 1, that the 2024 S27 supplement to the Code of Ordinances of the City of Springdale, Ohio, as prepared and submitted by American Legal Publishing Corporation, a copy of which is on file with the Clerk of Council, who certifies that the codification, renumbering, and rearrangement in book form is correct, is hereby adopted and incorporated by reference as if set forth herein in its entirety. Section 2, Council hereby finds and determines that all formal actions relative to the passage of this legislation were taken in an open meeting of this Council, and that all deliberations of this Council, and of its committees, if any, which resulted in formal action, were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with applicable legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 3, that this ordinance shall take effect on the earliest date allowed by law. Section 4, that this ordinance shall be an emergency measure necessary for the preservation of the public peace, health, safety, and general welfare, and shall, subject to the terms of Article 2D, 3D of the Charter, be effective immediately. The reason for the emergency is to enact and adopt the 2024 S27 supplement at the earliest possible date to ensure immediate compliance with revisions made to local, state, and federal laws since the last update.
Council, you've heard the reading of ordinance 42, 2024. It does have the emergency clause. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Brown, if you poll council.
Sullivan-Wisecup?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland?
Aye.
Mrs. Webster?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye. Ordinance number 42, 2024 passes with 7 affirmative votes. All right, moving on to ordinance number 43, 2024. It also has the emergency clause. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
Ordinance number 43, 2024, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to enter into an agreement with FYDA Freightliner Cincinnati for the purchase of a 2025 Freightliner M2-106 truck cab and chassis and declaring an emergency. Whereas Sourcewell is a cooperative purchasing entity available for use by all government and education agencies in the United States, including the City of Springdale, the city, and whereas Sourcewell has advertised and received bids for the purchase of various vehicles and equipment, and whereas the city seeks to purchase a cab and chassis from the program for use by the City Public Works Department, and whereas FYDA Freightliner Cincinnati submitted a bid through the Sourcewell program for a 2025 Freightliner M2-106 truck cab and chassis in the amount of $99,316. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring, Section 1. The City of Springdale accepts Sourcewell specifications for a new cab and chassis and finds that FYDA Freightliner Cincinnati is the lowest and best bidder for the purchase of a 2025 Freightliner M2-106 truck cab and chassis in the amount of $99,316. Section 2, that the mayor and city administrator are hereby authorized to enter into an agreement with FYDA Freightliner Cincinnati for the purchase of a 2025 Freightliner M2-106 truck cab and chassis for use by the City of Springdale Public Works Department. The agreement. A copy of the agreement is attached as Exhibit A and incorporated herein by reference. Section 3, that the Finance Officer Tax Commissioner is hereby authorized to pay FYDA Freightliner Cincinnati a sum not to exceed $99,316 for the purchase of a 2025 Freightliner M2-106 truck cab and chassis consistent with the agreement. Section 4, Council hereby finds and determines that all formal actions relative to the passage of this legislation were taken in an open meeting of this Council, and that all deliberations of this Council and of its committees, if any, which resulted in formal action, were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with applicable legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 5, that this ordinance shall be an emergency measure necessary for the preservation of the public peace, health, safety, and general welfare, and shall, subject to the terms of Article 2D, 3D of the Charter, be effective immediately. The reason for the emergency is the immediate need to enable the city to execute the agreement as soon as possible prior to the expiration of the bid price.
Council, you've heard the reading of Ordinance 43, 2024. It does have the emergency clause. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Brown, if you poll council.
Mizekop?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland?
Aye.
Mrs. Webster? Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye. Ordinance number 43, 2024 passes with 7 affirmative votes. All right, next we'll move on to Ordinance 44, 2024. It also has the emergency clause. Mr. Jacobs.
Ordinance number 44, 2024, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to enter into an agreement with W.A. Jones Truck Equipment for the purchase of a hook lift upgrade and declaring an emergency. Whereas Sourcewell is a cooperative purchasing entity available for use by all government and education agencies in the United States, including the city of Springdale, the city, and whereas Sourcewell has advertised and received bids for the purchase of various vehicles and equipment, and whereas the city seeks to purchase a new cab and chassis for use by the city's Public Works Department, and whereas in order to utilize the cab and chassis for the operations of the Public Works Department, the city also seeks to purchase a hook lift upgrade for the cab and chassis that includes swap body equipment, a dump body, pre-wet system, tailgate spreader, and safety warning lights. And whereas W.A. Jones Truck Equipment submitted a bid through the Sourcewell program for a hook lift upgrade for the cab and chassis that includes swap body equipment, a dump body, pre-wet system, tailgate spreader, and safety warning lights in the amount of $134,000 or $134,181. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring. Section 1, that the mayor and city administrator are hereby authorized to enter into an agreement with W.A. Jones Truck Equipment for the purchase of a hook lift upgrade that includes swap body equipment, a dump body pre-wet system, tailgate spreader, and safety warning lights, the agreement. A copy of the agreement is attached as Exhibit A and incorporated herein by reference. Section 2, that the Finance Officer Tax Commissioner is hereby authorized to pay W.A. Jones Truck Equipment a sum not to exceed $134,181 for the purchase of the hook lift upgrade consistent with the terms of the agreement. Section 3, council hereby finds and determines that all formal actions relative to the passage of this legislation were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council, and if its committees, if any, which resulted in formal action were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with applicable legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 4, that this ordinance shall be an emergency measure necessary for the preservation of the public peace, health, safety, and general welfare, and shall, subject to the terms of Article 2D, 3D of the Charter, be effective immediately. The reason for the emergency is the immediate need to enable the city to execute the agreement as soon as possible prior to the expiration of the bid price.
Council, you've heard the reading of Ordinance number 44, 2024. It does have the emergency clause. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Brown, if you poll council.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Mrs. Sullivan Mizekop?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mrs. Webster? Aye. Ms. McFarland?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye. Ordinance number 44, 2024 passes with 7 affirmative votes. All right, moving on, we have next ordinance number 45, 2024. It also has the emergency clause. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
Ordinance number 45, 2024, an ordinance authorizing the City of Springdale, Ohio to enter into a 3-year lease purchase agreement by and between Fifth Third Bank and the City of Springdale, Ohio in a principal amount of $240,000 to finance the purchase of a dump truck for the City of Springdale and authorizing other documents and connections therewith and declaring an emergency. Whereas the City of Springdale, Ohio, the city, desires to finance the purchase of a dump truck for the purpose of providing public works services in the city, the property, and whereas the financing and leasing of the property will be in the best interest of the city. And whereas Fifth Third Bank, Fifth Third, has agreed to purchase and or finance the property and to lease the property to the city. And whereas the city has agreed to lease the property from Fifth Third. And whereas the city hereby finds and determines that the execution of a lease purchase agreement in a form to be negotiated to the satisfaction of the mayor and city administrator, the lease, in the principal amount not exceeding the amount stated above for the purpose of acquiring the property to be described in the lease is appropriate and necessary to the functions and operations of the city. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring. Section 1, that for the purpose of providing a dump truck for the city and the services rendered thereby, this council hereby determines that it shall lease under the lease of the property from Fifth Third. Section 2, that the city is authorized to lease the property through Fifth Third. Section 3, that for the purpose of providing the property and payment of costs of issuance related to the lease, this council hereby authorizes and directs the mayor and city administrator to negotiate, enter into, execute, and deliver, in each case on behalf of the city, the lease and any exhibits thereto in the principal amount of $240,000 payable over a period of 3 years at the effective interest rate of 5.25% per annum. The remaining terms of the lease shall be negotiated in a form approved by the mayor and city administrator in a manner not inconsistent with this ordinance, and the execution thereof by such officials or either of them shall be deemed conclusive evidence of such approval. This council hereby further authorizes and directs the mayor and city administrator of the city to execute on behalf of the city all of the related contracts, agreements, and certificates necessary and incidental to the lease and any exhibits thereto. Upon execution, the covenants and promises contained in the lease and ancillary documents made on behalf of the city shall be conclusively binding on the city and in full force and effect from and after such execution. Section 4, that the city obligations under the lease shall be subject to annual appropriation or renewal by this council, as will be set forth in the lease. And the city obligations under the lease shall not constitute a general obligation of the city or indebtedness under the Constitution or laws of the state. Section 5, that this council hereby authorizes and directs the mayor and city administrator or either of them to execute and deliver a non-arbitrage certificate and such other documents and certificates, and to do all the acts and things required of it by the provisions of the lease, to the end that full and complete performance of all the terms, covenants, and provisions of the lease shall be effected. Section 6, that this council hereby covenants that it will take such actions in such manner and to such extent, if any, as may be necessary to cause the interest component of rental payments under the lease to be and remain excludable from gross income for federal income tax purposes. This council will also submit the appropriate statements or filings to the Internal Revenue Service containing the information required by the Internal Revenue Code, including IRS Form 8038G. Section 7, that the obligations under the lease are hereby designated qualified tax-exempt obligations for the purpose set forth in Section 265 of the Internal Revenue Code. The city does not anticipate issuing more than $10 million of qualified tax-exempt obligations during the calendar year 2024. Section 8, the process of the lease shall be credited to the proper fund or funds as provided in the lease, and those proceeds are appropriated and shall be used for the purpose for which the lease is authorized and are hereby appropriated for that purpose. Section 9, there is hereby appropriated from unappropriated funds currently on deposit in the street maintenance fund the sum of $0 to pay the cost of lease payments due or coming due under the lease for the initial term ending December 31st, 2024, and the sum of $6,500 to pay cost and expenses associated with the property and the lease. Section 10, this council hereby approves the issuance of the obligations for the financing of the property. Section 11, that it is found and determined that all formal actions of this council concerning and relating to the adoption of this ordinance were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council and of any of its committees that resulted in such formal action were in meetings open to the public in compliance with all legal requirements, including Section 121.22 Ohio Revised Code and the rules of this council adopted in accordance therewith. Section 12, that this ordinance shall be an emergency measure necessary for the preservation of the public peace, health, safety, and general welfare, and shall, subject to the terms of Article 2D, 3D of the Charter, be effective immediately. The reason for the declaration of emergency is the immediate issuance of said lease obligation is required for the orderly and timely financing of the property referred to herein, including obtaining a favorable rate of interest.
Council, you've heard the reading of ordinance number 45, 2024. It does have the emergency clause. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Brown, if you poll council.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Mrs. Salvo-Meiskop?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland?
Aye.
Mrs. Webster? Aye. Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye. Ordinance number 45, 2024 passes with 7 affirmative votes. All right, next we'll move on to ordinance 46, 2024. It also has the emergency clause. Mr. Jacobs.
Ordinance number 46, 2024, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to execute a community recreation conservation project pass-through grant agreement with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources related to certain outdoor recreation improvements and declaring an emergency. Whereas the city of Springdale, the city, applied for funds from the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, ODNR, to be used for certain outdoor recreation improvements, including the repair of outdoor bleachers and remodel outdoor bathrooms at the Springdale Community Center to make them ADA compliant. And whereas ODNR has awarded the city a grant in an amount not to exceed $73,500 for the proposed project. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring. Section 1, that the mayor and city administrator are hereby authorized to execute a community recreation conservation project pass-through grant agreement with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources to accept grant funds totaling $73,500 to be used for certain outdoor recreation improvements. The agreement. A copy of the agreement is attached as Exhibit A and incorporated herein by reference. Section 2, council hereby finds and determines that all formal actions relative to the passage of this legislation were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council and of its committees, if any, which resulted in formal action, were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with all applicable legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 3, this ordinance shall take effect on the earliest date allowed by law. Section 4, that this ordinance shall be an emergency measure necessary for the preservation of the public peace, health, safety, and general welfare, and shall, subject to the terms of Article 2D3D of the Charter, be effective immediately. The reason for said declaration of emergency is the need to execute the agreement, to receive the funding, and begin the proposed project as soon as possible.
Council, you've heard the reading of ordinance number 46, 2024. It does have the emergency clause. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Brown, if you poll council.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Mrs. Seldon-Weiskopf?
Aye.
Mrs. McFarland?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mrs. Webster? Aye. Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye. Ordinance number 46, 2024 passes with 7 affirmative votes. All right, I think we're through the emergency ordinances now. We moved on to ordinance number 47, 2024. This is a first reading. Mr. Jacobs.
Ordinance number 47, 2024. An ordinance approving a zoning map amendment for the property located at 505 West Crescentville Road and approving the preliminary development plan for the property. Whereas the property located at 505 West Crescentville Road consists of approximately 17.813 acres, the property, and whereas the property is currently zoned General Industrial District, GI, and the applicant seeks to rezone the property to Planned Unit Development District, PUD, for the construction of a multifamily housing development. And whereas on June 11, 2024, the Planning Commission met and considered modification of the existing General Industrial District, GI, to Planned Unit Development, PUD, for the real property located at 505 West Crescentville Road, and an amendment to the zoning map of the City of Springdale. And whereas the City of Springdale Planning Commission, in considering the application, recommended approval of the zone change for the property from General Industrial District, GI, to Planned Unit Development, PUD, and recommended approval of the preliminary development plan. And whereas on September 4th, 2024, after proper notice having been given, Council of the City of Springdale held a public hearing to consider the proposed change in zoning from General Industrial District, GI, to Planned Unit Development, PUD, and the proposed development plan. And whereas upon conclusion of the public hearing, the Council of the City of Springdale considered in an open meeting the proposed amendment to the City of Council Springdale zoning map, City of Springdale zoning map, and the recommendation of the Planning Commission to change the zoning of 505 West Crescentville Road from General Industrial District, GI, to Planned Unit Development, PUD, and the proposed preliminary development plan. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring. Section 1, the recommendation of the City of Springdale Planning Commission with regard to the property at 505 West Crescentville Road is hereby approved, and the amendment to the City of Springdale zoning map is granted such that the zoning for the property at 505 West Crescentville Road is hereby changed from General Industrial District, GI, to Planned Unit Development, PUD. Section 2, the request to approve the preliminary development plan for the property located at 505 West Crescentville Road, which have been reviewed and approved by the Planning Commission in accordance with the exhibits listed and described in the attached Exhibit A, which is incorporated here by reference, is hereby approved, subject to the conditions of the Planning Commission and any other conditions or modifications imposed by Council, including A, staff, city engineer, and city planner's recommendations and considerations contained in their report shall apply, and B, as a PUD, this shall include staff, law director, and city's approval of covenants as necessary as it pertains to the project. And C, all mechanical units shall be screened per code. And D, all tree preservation and replacement conditions. And E, applicant shall work with staff to resolve the shortfall of caliper inches. And F, the revised property shall include 18 575 square feet units, 18 583 square feet units, and 18 624 square feet units with dedicated bedrooms. And G, a portion of the south buffer yard as depicted on submitted exhibits, which has a buffer yard of 10 feet, may be reduced to 7 feet with the necessary buffering material as required by code. And H, The southwest dumpster compactor enclosure near the tire discounters or roosters shall be permitted a reduction in setback from 20 feet to 5 feet with the appropriate buffering and screening as required by code. And I, all of the zoning code regulations and conditions shall remain in effect, and any change to those conditions shall constitute a change in the approved plans. Such changes would require approval from the Springdale Planning Commission. Section 3, council hereby finds and determines that all formal actions relative to the passage of this legislation were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council and of its committees, if any, which resulted in formal action, were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with applicable legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 4, this ordinance shall take effect on the earliest date allowed by law.
Council, this was the first reading, and we will have a public hearing at our September 4th meeting related to this change. Are there questions or discussion tonight? Ms. Sullivan-Weiskupp.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to remind everybody that this last month I did report on this from the Planning Commission meeting. This was the second time that they had come to planning. There was a lot of considerations, as you can see, the A through I that were hammered out over this, and Planning Commission would definitely like you to consider changing this to a PUD and have it reflect all the A through I conditions. Thank you.
All right, I do have one other question. On H, we list business names inside of the ordinance. Is that, I don't remember that being typical. Typically, we put addresses. Or do we need to make a change there for the next reading, or is that going to be all right? Mr. Braun.
Thank you, Mr. President. I typically, when I prepare the legislation, do it identical to the way it comes because we need to incorporate the same changes they did. That's why I did it the way that I did it. If you would like, for final reading, I can add the addresses, but they did include the names of the businesses there. I can do it whichever way you prefer.
Yeah, I did notice that it was in the report that way. I think that's probably a note for them going forward, that it'd be better to have the addresses when they submit to us if possible, just so it's cleaner. And maybe we can amend it just to put the address next to it so that we still track to the what the Planning Commission sent, but also clarify that we're talking about those specific sites.
I'll make that correction.
Thank you. All right, any other questions or discussion tonight? All right, seeing none, we will see this again at our next meeting, along with the public hearing that I mentioned. All right, next we'll move on to ordinance number 48, 2024. This is also a first reading. Mr. Jacobs.
Ordinance number 48, 2024, an ordinance approving a major modification to the Springdale Lake Planned Unit Development and approving the preliminary development plan for the property located at 12021 Sheraton Lane. Whereas the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio Council has previously approved the Springdale Lake Planned Unit Development PUD, and whereas the applicant has submitted an application for a major modification to the Springdale Lake PUD and preliminary development plan at 12021 Sheridan Lane to change from office use to retail restaurant use for the location of a bodega, and whereas at its meeting of July 9th, 2024, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the proposed major modification. And whereas a public hearing was held by Council on September 4th, 2024, pursuant to the requirements of the zoning code. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring. Section 1, the major modification to the Springdale Lake PUD and preliminary development plan, which has been reviewed and approved by the Planning Commission in accordance with the exhibits listed and described in the attached Exhibit A, which is incorporated herein by reference, is hereby approved, subject to the conditions of the Planning Commission, including A, staff, city engineer, and city planners' recommendations and considerations contained in their reports. As a PUD, this shall include staff, law director, and city's approval of covenants as necessary. B, all other zoning code regulations and conditions shall remain in effect. C, final development plan shall be reviewed at a later date. Section 2, that this council hereby finds and determines that all formal actions relative to the passage of this ordinance were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council and of its committees, if any, which resulted in formal action, were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with applicable legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 3, that the clerk of council is hereby authorized and directed to notify the applicant of council's action. Section 4, that this ordinance shall be effective from and after the earliest period allowed by law.
Council, you've heard the first reading of ordinance 48, 2024. Are there any questions or discussion tonight? Mr. Gleaves.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does anyone know if this bodega has another location?
Ms. Sullivan-Weiskupp.
They do not currently own another location. They were actually fashioning theirs off of one that they liked, that they'd seen other places. And so this is their first bodega.
Ms. McFarland.
It is being developed by Sugar Creek Packing Company, which previously had an office in that building.
Ms. Webster.
Does anybody know what the hours?
Will you pull your mic down? Will you pull your mic down? Thank you.
Does anybody know what the hours are going to be at this place?
Ms. McFarland.
Huh?
I don't think, at the Planning Commission meeting, I don't think they confirmed, but it is not going to be a late night, bar open till 2 a.m.
This just be for the residents there, or
No, it is
everybody,
open to the
anybody
public.
that wants to be
Yeah.
there? But you don't know for sure the hours.
Well, we can find that for the next meeting, if that's all right.
I was going
Thank
to say,
you.
I think one of them are in the audience. They might be able to better answer that.
If you'd like to answer the question, we can take it, or we can just deal with the next meeting, if you know. Would you mind coming up to the mic and just stating your name, just so we have it for the minutes? And if you're not sure tonight, that's totally fine. We can answer it during the public hearing.
Hi, Ian Harris with Sugar Creek. We initially proposed a 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. time frame, but it's we're flexible, but it's not a solidified time frame yet.
And that's what was presented at the planning committee, because that's what we would be reviewing. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for answering that. And again, we will see this again at our next meeting, and there will be a public hearing as well. So we'll have an opportunity. I did want to say, since you're here, I looked at the drawings and I thought it was a wonderful idea for what it's worth. I thought it was a great spot for it, especially since there's so many residents on that side now, especially with the arrays, and having Route 4 right there is sometimes a barrier for people to easily get out. So I thought it was a lovely concept. Okay, any other questions or discussions? All right, seeing none, we will see this again next meeting. All right, next we have Resolution R12, 2024. Mr. Jacobs.
Resolution number R12, 2024, a resolution authorizing the filing of continuing disclosures with the Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board related to the March 2017 street improvement bonds. Whereas, as part of the issuance of the $8.2 million of street improvement bonds in March of 2017, the City of Springdale, the city, has a continuing disclosure requirement under the Securities and Exchange Commission Rule 15C2-12, the rule. And whereas the rule requires that certain disclosures be made annually to the Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board under the Electronic Municipal Market Access System, EMMA. And whereas the filing required to EMMA is an update to certain information and tables that were originally included as part of the official statement document from the bond issue and must be made to AMMA by September 1st, 2024. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring. Section 1, that the Council has reviewed the annual information filing for fiscal year 2023 as set forth in the attached Exhibit A, which is incorporated herein by reference, and authorizes the City to file such continuing disclosure with the Electronic Municipal Market Access System. Section 2, this Council hereby finds and determines that all formal actions relative to the passage of this resolution were taken in an open meeting of this Council, and that all deliberations of this Council and of its committees, if any, which resulted in formal action were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with applicable legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 3, that this resolution shall take effect and be enforced from and after the earliest period allowed by law.
Council, you've heard the reading of Resolution R12, 2024. It can be acted on tonight. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Questions or discussion? I'd see none. Ms. Brown, if you poll council.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Mrs. Sullivan Weiskopf?
Aye.
Mrs. Webster?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye. Resolution R12, 2024 passes with 7 affirmative votes. And a special thank you to Mr. Jacobs for taking us through all of those readings. That was quite a bit tonight. Thank you. All right, next, item 13, Ms. Sullivan Weiskopf.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we go to an executive session under Article 2, D1 of the Springdale Charter to discuss economic development issues.
Second. Moved and seconded. Questions or discussion? All right, seeing none, Ms. Brown, if you'd poll council on moving to executive session for the purposes of economic development discussions.
Mrs. Sullivan Meiskop.
Aye.
Mr. Vanover.
Aye.
Mrs. Webster. Aye. Mr. Gleaves.
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs.
Aye.
Ms. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Anderson.
Aye. Executive session movement is passed with seven affirmative votes. The administration will be expecting any action out of this executive session. And aside from having Andy join us, do we need to have anyone else back there? All right. In that case, we are in executive session. We will return. There's an item discussion for Chapter 3003 Ordinance of Resolution. I just had asked to have this on the agenda as a placeholder so I could let everyone know that we're still in discussions about how to make those updates. We talked about at the last meeting. Mayor Hawkins and I still have to sit down with council and review some of the proposals in that. So there'll still be an opportunity for council to give feedback, but we haven't done that step yet. I expect that we'll have an ordinance that we can discuss in our next meeting. So unless there's anything else tonight on that, that's what we're at for 3003. All right. Any other old business that we want to bring up tonight? Ms. Webster. Excuse me, will you pull your mic down?
Forget that. I think in view of the fact that what our last two meetings have been like, that we should reconsider taking those weeks off next summer.
Yeah.
I think it's been really poor. All the stuff piled on us all at once, that all the thickness of everything, and I just think that we should reconsider that. But we should do it early, because a lot of people that work have to tell their employer that they'd like that time off. So I think like January or February, or even earlier if you so desire.
I think that's a great point. I'll make a note. We can discuss the summer schedule for next year in the first quarter ahead of time. The challenge I think we'll have is, I'm not sure if we have visibility to all of the ordinances and changes that'll happen. When we decided to do summer schedule, we had a discussion. Administration didn't expect that we would have this many things, so it was a bit of a surprise. But we can talk about it in January, sure. Mayor Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I appreciate Councilmember Webster's comments on that. And it's important to know, too, if council decides to have a summer session, council always can make a decision if there's legislation that comes through or important things and want to have a formally regular scheduled meeting or a special meeting. And you guys have been great as a council in terms of repeatedly indicating, particularly when there's things that are potentially going on with the mall site, saying, hey, look, we're willing to come in and meet on an off schedule or a formally scheduled but canceled meeting. So council always has that ability to. Administratively, we try to forecast as best we can, and sometimes there's things that pop up in terms of grants and whatever that we didn't know were going to necessarily be there or hit at that time, and so we've had some, you're right, we've had some very full agendas, but yeah, whatever council's pleasure is, and the administration will try to keep you guys apprised of things as best we can.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting that even in tonight's agenda, 7 of the items that we went through were emergency items, and we didn't have line of sight to those until a week before the meeting. So even tonight's agenda, even if we had both our meetings this month, we probably would have still had this agenda. This wasn't things that were deferred from the first meeting. These were things that had come up or been firmed up. In some of those cases, like the trucks, the public works things, those were still being discussed even if they'd be added, I think even the day of, like Thursday or Friday, we were still getting quotes back. So even those, we would still be having those items. So 7 of those 10 items tonight would still have been there even if we had a meeting.
7 ordinances added to the agenda at that night. I don't believe that that's ever happened. I don't know, but I don't think so.
Yeah, that was unusual, I agree. And
Yeah.
we're working on trying to improve that. Some of that's just administrative, it just happened that way.
Well, I just think that the meetings are too long at this hour, and especially for the full-time people. And I just think we ought to reconsider that next year or the end of this year. I'll bring it up again, and we'll go for it.
Great. All right, any other old business? All right, next we'll move on to new business. Any new business to bring before council? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to meetings and announcements. Mr. Vanover.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a reminder, reiterate, 8/28, which is next Wednesday, 2 o'clock, the rental committee meeting. And hopefully we'll have a lot of positive work come out of that.
Ms. McFarland.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a reminder, we will have an urban farming committee meeting on September 3rd, adjacent to Chambers, and then a Board of Health meeting on September 12th.
Ms. Sullivan-Wisecup.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have Planning Commission on Tuesday, September 10th at 7 p.m. in these chambers.
Mr. Gleaves.
Thank you, Mr. President. We will have a Board of Zoning Appeals meeting August 27th at 7 p.m. in these chambers.
I'm sorry, is this Ms. Morgan's light? I've got a light without a name on it. Is that Mr. Yule? No, it's not his light. Stephanie's light's on. Oh, the label's in the wrong place then. Mr. Yule.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple announcements. Just to reiterate, the rescheduled concert in Art in the Park will take place Thursday, August 29th at 7:30 p.m. The Buzzbin Band with 90s hits cover band. The pool is open on weekends only, noon to 6 through Labor Day. And Labor Day, September the 2nd, the community center will be closed, but the pool will still be open. And just to make sure people have it on their calendars, Community Bash and Family Mud Quest will take place on Saturday, September the 7th.
Ms. McFarland.
Thank you, Mr. President. I did just want to say a quick thank you to everybody up here, all the residents of Springdale that have supported me and my family over the last few weeks, month. It's been a rough go, but everybody's support has been incredible. So I truly appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Mayor Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. President, and we appreciate you as well. Just another reminder, Town Hall meeting September 11th at 7 p.m. and Goldfish Swim, Toy Goldfish Swim, August 31st at 1 p.m. And then last, but this is important, this Friday at 7 p.m. on Chester Road, another chapter will be written in the greatest high school football rivalry ever, as Princeton will host the Moeller Crusaders. So I wanted to make sure that's out there too.
All right. Ms. Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Friendly reminder of the Auditor of State's new fraud reporting and training requirement that is due to be completed not only by all staff members but elected officials as well, due September 28th. So any assistance needed, please contact me and I'll be happy to help out with that. Secondly, just wanted to say pleasure to join you all on this dais. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, don't see any more lights. Next, we'll move on to communications to the audience. This is the second opportunity for anyone in the audience that would like to address council for any reason. The floor is now open. Simply come up to the dais, state your name and address, and you'd have up to 5 minutes to address council.
Cole Spradlin, 870 York Haven. This is very brief, just so there is no confusion. On Labor Day Monday, the pool, according to my schedule, will be open until 8 instead of 6.
Thank you for that. Floor still open. Second call. Third and final call. And I'm closing communications from the audience. Next, we'll turn to Mr. Jacobs for a recap of legislative items and legislation in development, in whichever order makes the most sense for him.
Council, as you review your internal memorandum, item 1 was addressed by Ordinance 32/2024, an ordinance amending Chapter 98.01 of the Springdale Code of Ordinances governing the entertainment admission tax in the city of Springdale. That passed with 7 affirmative votes. Item 2 was addressed by Resolution R11/2024, a resolution commending City Administrator John J. Jones for his dedicated service to the citizens of the city of Springdale. That passed with 7 affirmative votes. Item 3 was addressed by Ordinance 40/2024, an ordinance authorizing an agreement between the City of Springdale and the Board of Hamilton County Commissioners for Municipal Road Funds, MRF, relative to the improvement of West Crescentville Road and declaring an emergency. That passed with 7 affirmative votes. Item 4 was addressed by Ordinance 41/2024, an ordinance reducing and recertifying special assessments levied for the purpose of constructing certain improvements and declaring an emergency. Passed with 7 affirmative votes. Item 5 was addressed by ordinance 42, 2024, an ordinance enacting and adopting the 2024 S27 supplement to the Springdale Code of Ordinances and declaring an emergency, passing with 7 affirmative votes. Item 6 was addressed by ordinance 43, 2024, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and the city administrator to enter into an agreement with FYDA Freightliner Cincinnati for the purchase of a truck cab and chassis and declaring an emergency, passing with 7 affirmative votes. Item 7 was addressed by ordinance 44, 2024, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to enter into an agreement with W.A. Jones Truck Equipment for the purchase of a hook lift upgrade and declaring an emergency, passing with 7 affirmative votes. Item 8 was addressed by ordinance 45, 2024, an ordinance authorizing the city of Springdale, Ohio to enter into a 3-year lease purchase agreement with Fifth Third Bank in the amount of $240,000 to finance the purchase of a dump truck and declaring an emergency, passing with 7 affirmative votes. Item 9 was addressed by ordinance 46, 2024, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to execute a community recreation conservation project pass-through grant agreement with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources related to certain outdoor recreation improvements and declaring an emergency, passing with 7 affirmative votes. Item 10 was addressed by Resolution 12, 2024, a resolution authorizing the filing of continuing disclosures related to the March 2017 street improvement bonds, passing with 7 affirmative votes. Item still in development, item 11 was addressed by ordinance 47, 2024, an ordinance approving a zoning map amendment and preliminary development plan for the Springdale Cinema apartment project at 505 West Crescentville Road. That received a first reading. Item 12 was addressed by ordinance 48, 2024, an ordinance approving a major modification to the Springdale Lake planned unit development and approving the preliminary development plan for the property located at 12021 Sheraton Lane. That received a first reading. And the other items are all forthcoming, unless there's anything else from administration.
Mayor Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. From the administration, if we can just have a formal request from council or council member with regard to item number 13, the ordinance declaring certain city property as surplus property and authorizing the sale, disposal, or transfer of surplus, as well as a request for item number 14, an ordinance authorizing execution of a grant agreement with the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency for participation in the H2 Ohio Rivers Initiative Chloride Reduction Grant Program, as well as legislation for Chapter 30.03 legislation and legislation with regard to pool management for 2025, if you council would.
You can consider those requested.
Thank you.
All right. Any other legislative actions that need to be requested in advance of our next meeting from council or administration that we haven't covered? All right. I don't see any. Then all that's left before us is item 20.
Move to adjourn.
We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.